All right, let's get these buttons to work. So you should have these three buttons: play, instructions, and quit to desktop. So if you double click objects in the design view, it automatically puts code in the script that goes along with the form. So if you double click on the button, the default action is when you actually click the button. So I double clicked that play button, and this is what popped up here. So when we click the play button, what we're going to have to do is switch to this form right here when the player starts playing the game. So the first thing we need to do is hide the main menu. So what we're going to do is say me, which actually selects this form right here, and we're going to tell it to hide itself. So just hide with a set of parentheses. So this is an event that tells the form to hide. Simple as that. Line below it, we're going to say or grab the game object, which in this case is this form right here, our main game, and we're going to say dot show. So that's going to show that form, and the player is going to be able to start to play. Okay. However, we need to call one more line of code, and what we're going to do is grab the game form. Again, there's our main game, and we're going to tell it to call this subroutine called restart. Now the reason it's throwing an error is because we haven't actually created this yet. So what we're going to have to do is go into our game script, and down at the bottom we'll go ahead and create a new private subroutine right underneath this reset objects subroutine. So hit enter a couple times. We'll do, now instead of private, we need to do public because another script is actually accessing it. So it needs to be public instead of private. Sub, and we need to give it the exact same name. So restart. Okay, so whatever you type in right here for the subroutine name, it needs to be the same here. All right, hit enter once to put in that end sub, and there you go. You shouldn't have any errors. All right, the whole reason we're using this is because we basically need to reset all of this information when the game is first loaded. So let's say that the player plays the game, they lose or whatever, they get a high score, they quit, they go back to the main menu. If they were to hit play again, we need to be able to reset everything that's in the game view, or else they'll just be able to keep playing the same game they were playing before. All right, so that's what this event down at the bottom is for, which is basically just going to rerun this. So we'll get to that a little bit later. We got a lot of other stuff to set up first. Okay, back to the main menu. Let's say if they hit the instructions button, so I double click there, puts in this event. Again, we'll come back to the instructions later. Right now, everyone knows how to play the game, so we'll skip that. You can save that till the end. And the very last button, we'll double click that. Quit to desktop means that you're going to quit the application entirely. So we just put in one line of code that says application.exit. So if they click that button, it's going to exit the application. If you play test it, it does the exact same thing as if you were to hit this red X in the top right hand corner. So if you click that, it basically does the same thing, application.exit. If I play test it again, hit that button, bam, exit it, just like you would hit the X. So that's it for the main menu or splash screen. So now we're going to get into setting up a pause. Should definitely be a feature that is necessary when creating a game. First thing we need to do is set up the pause. So I'm going to look for our variable we've created that says can play and paused. All right, so we have paused and can play. This can play variable is used for not only if they're on a different form, but also if the game is paused as well. All right, so in the timer tick, right down here, all of this code, here's the end sub, so everything from this last next statement all the way up, all of this is inside of the timer tick. This is all based on the ball movement and player movement and what the ball can interact with. All of this is going to be able to happen if paused is false, because if the game is paused, none of this should be able to happen. So what we're going to do is basically put all of this code that's inside the timer tick inside of an if statement. Right before these comments that I've put in, to be honest, we're not actually even going to use these anymore, so I'm just going to take them out. There we go. Makes it look a little cleaner. All right, so right before the dim here, I'm going to put in an if statement. So if the game is not paused, then Now if I hit enter here, it's going to put in an end if. So what I'm going to do is cut this end if. That means all this other stuff is going to be in it. And I'm going to scroll down to the end of that timer tick subroutine. Right after the next, I'm going to paste in that end if. As soon as I click somewhere else, it's going to put it in line and the error goes away. So the end if is right before the end sub, and the if statement starts here. Okay, so this says if it's not paused, then you can keep playing. Well, what's going to cause it to pause? What we're going to do is set up a key on the keyboard to actually pause the game. All right, we're going to put that in our select block. But before we do that, the same type of thing needs to happen with our select cases here. We should only be able to change the direction of our player block and check if the ball is stuck if it's unpaused. So we're going to do the same type of thing with these select blocks. So for each one, I'm going to put in a space here so I can put in my if block. So if paused is equal to false and can play is true, then again, if I hit enter, it's going to put in the end if. I'm going to cut that out, put it after the select. Okay, delete some of this white space here. There we go. So your block should look like this. When you highlight your if statement here, notice these little gray parts that pop up. That just shows you where the block starts and where it ends. All right, do the same thing for your key up event. So if can play, then again, cut that end if, put it after the select block, and we're good. So we don't have to worry about putting in the pause check here because we're actually going to use that case down here. So we're going to modify and insert one more case for if the player presses, I'm going to make it the P key, P for pause. You can change it to any key that you want. All right, so this last case for P, we're basically going to set paused to the opposite value. So if it's true, it's going to go false. If it's false, it's going to go true. So what we do is put in the not keyword right before it. So you're setting paused to whatever the opposite of paused is. And now we're going to do a small check. If the game is paused, we're going to actually pop up a sub-menu that allows some different options for the player. They can either quit and go back to the main menu, or they could resume the game. So those two options. So what we're going to do is show the paused menu. But for now, I'm just going to put in a comment because we haven't created that yet. So pause menu pops up. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that in there once we get it created. So that's going to be our next step. All right, similar to how we did the main menu and created a new form for that, we're going to do the same thing for our pause menu during the game. So we're going to go up into Project, add Windows Form, make sure Windows Form is selected, change the name down here. I'm going to call it Pause Menu. Click Add. There's our new form. This one's going to be a little different though because we don't want the player to be able to minimize, maximize, or X out of this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change the start position to center screen. I'm going to get rid of this stuff at the top by changing the form border style to none. As soon as you do that, there's no options up at the top. So we don't need to worry about maximize box, minimize box, any of that because it's gone. There's no options. Again, this form doesn't need to be very big because it's only going to display a few options, or only a couple options, resume and quit. All right, so let's get this form set up. Let's go ahead and put in a label here. I'm going to do this kind of quick because you guys should be familiar with adding controls by now. go ahead and set up actions for these buttons. So I'm going to drag this to the end here because this is the design for that. Right click, click into view so you can view the code. And again, I'm just going to keep my organization up here in my tabs. Double click on the button. So here's our event for when the resume button is clicked. We're going to hide this form, so me.hide. And now we want the game to resume, so we're going to do game.paused equals false. As soon as you click off of that, it's going to give you a little error. It says breakout 3, yours should just be breakout. Game.paused is not accessible in this context because it is private. Okay, now remember the private and public keywords. If I go into the code on the game form, so this form here, go into the code. If you look at your paused variable, right now we just put in dim. If you don't say public or private here, it's automatically private, meaning that you can't use it in any other script. So what we need to do is change this keyword here from dim to public. As soon as you do that, you're going to be able to use this variable in all the other scripts that you want. So if we come over here now to pause menu, notice the error is gone. Okay, if you check your error list, there's nothing there. All right, we don't actually have to show this because the pause menu is going to show up right on top of it. All right, by setting this line right here, basically they're unpausing the game. So as soon as they hit this, the menu will go away and then they'll be able to resume the play. So the only other thing we need to do here is set up the quit. So if I double click on the quit button, puts that event in for us. Again, we're going to hide pause menu. We're also going to hide the game form because they're no longer playing the game either because they quit. And we need to show the main menu. So they go back to the main menu if they quit the game. So they essentially have to quit twice. They have to quit the pause menu, and then when you get back to the main menu, you got to quit to desktop. All right, useful if they want to just quit the current game, but they want to restart, so you can hit quit and start a new game. All right, so we're going to take this pause menu and go back to where we put it in right here in our key up event. So right underneath this comment, we're going to go ahead and implement that pause menu. Simple enough. All we're going to do is say pause menu dot show. All right, let's play test this, see if it works. So we're going to play our game. Okay, I'm going to hit P for pause. Notice it paused the game because in our timer tick event, if the game is not paused, it's going to run all this code. But as soon as you hit the P key right here, it's setting paused to true because it's the opposite value. All right, so now if you hit resume, play continues. If you hit P, pauses it again. Okay, we have not set up the other keys to the P and the Q to actually perform the same actions as the buttons, but if you do hit quit here, it goes back to the main menu. So I was saying before, the issue is when we hit play, it's going to go right back to the game where we left off. So we have to implement the restart down here, and we'll do that in the next tutorial.